Hi, my name is Sabrina Waldron, and if you're watching this podcast, I teach one of your children in 11th grade English. So, welcome to one of my first podcasts. I figured that this would be a good way for me to get to introduce myself to all of you since I'm not able to be at Parents' Night tonight because of a family wedding. So, go with me on this journey of one of my first podcasts. A little bit about me, I have a bachelor's in English from the University of Florida. Go Gators! I got a master's in comparative literature from NYU, and I also have a master's of arts in teaching English from Brooklyn College. So you might be wondering how I got to those different places. I was born in New Jersey, but I grew up in South Florida, which of course brought me to the University of Florida. And after I graduated, I headed to New York for a PhD program at NYU. My plan was to become a college professor because I really wanted to teach, but I quickly found out that many of my professors and classmates weren't really interested in the act of teaching and more interested in kind of teaching between books or becoming public intellectuals. But I wanted to really work with students a lot more closely. So I stuck around to finish my master's, finish my PhD coursework, TA a bit. And then I took some time off before later heading back to school to get my MAT at Brooklyn College. So I stayed in New York for a few years, and I've only recently moved to Atlanta. And still getting used to all the traffic and the driving after 8 years of subways and cabs, but I am enjoying myself here. A little bit about what I did in that time between grad school and teaching. I worked for an international foundation called the Atlantic Philanthropies for a while, doing some grant work. Then I worked for an organization called Libraries for the Future, where we worked on innovation and investment in the nation's libraries. It did some professional development for librarians, kind of helping turn libraries into community resources and community centers rather than how people tend to see libraries as just a receptacle for books. After getting my MAT at Brooklyn College, I worked for a small progressive public school called Lions Community School. I was fortunate to get to do some really interesting work there with experiential education, tying English curriculum into all the cultural resources the city had, getting the kids out to the museums and other organizations and resources. Then when I moved to Atlanta, I was really blessed to get this position here in Westminster, and I've really enjoyed my first year here last year and enjoying the start of my second. It's a little bit about why I teach. Growing up as the daughter of two Caribbean immigrants, my family's from Trinidad and Tobago, and my older siblings are as well. And I get back there as much as possible. I was there last March. I really enjoyed all the works that I learned in school, the canonical texts, the classical texts. Being a former British colony, my parents were also very interested in British literature. But my father was also very good about making sure that I was reading different books from different authors, Caribbean authors especially, which led me to focus on Caribbean literature in grad school. And so I really like kind of bringing a new perspective to the students, bridging the canonical with the contemporary, having a more global view than just the strict, quote-unquote, classical education that students might be used to. And it's just really fun to support our students during an exciting and formative time in their lives. So this year's new junior English course is called Visions and Revisions, and my subtitle for it is the British Post-Colonial Conversation. So the idea of the Visions and Revisions course is looking at how texts are in dialogue with each other over time. That a lot of our archetypes, a lot of our storylines get reworked, but they're reworked for a reason, not just for repetition. And also the idea of revision as our students work towards becoming better writers, preparing for the AP exam, that work of revising their own work just for writing, but also how do we revise other people's ideas to reflect a new perspective. So bringing in my background and with the base of this course being British literature, in my course we're looking at how these different texts interplay between England and their former colonies. So we've just finished reading A Modest Proposal, and you may have already heard from your kids that they've been preparing their own satires. They've been having a really fun time with it. After that, we're going to transition to some poetry and then into Jane Eyre and Jasmine, which is written by an Indian woman author, which has echoes of Jane Eyre in a really interesting way. In the beginning of the spring, we'll read Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, followed by a response piece that Chinua Achebe wrote on Conrad's images of Africa in Heart of Darkness. And then later on in the year, we read Shakespeare's The Tempest, and then Amy Césaire, a French Caribbean poet's work, A Tempest, where he takes this kind of Caribbean colonial reimagining of Shakespeare's Tempest. So it's going to be a really exciting year, looking at a wide range of literature, early literature to more contemporary work, and a real global view on it. So some things that can be used as resources, the fall syllabus, which all your children should have, and you can also access that through Schoology, which I'll reference in a moment. Materials that they definitely need on hand, note cards. I use note cards for a lot of kind of quick responses to see how they're doing in class, working on discussion skills. By their junior year, we're really doing a lot of student-run discussions. So having them know how to generate good discussion questions, how to dig into text, and kind of passing those around, have students respond to them. An organized binder they need for notes, free writes, and graded essays and quizzes as well. And the fall syllabus, when you look at it, there's a breakdown of my grading scale and a little bit more detail of what we'll be doing this semester. Some resources for them is always back work. Can't encourage it enough, especially as they start to get into some trickier texts, some more dense texts, that it's great to have them come and discuss them with me. Schoology, which we're using as my kind of course management tool. You can always email me at sabrinawaldron@westminster.net. I'd really love to hear from you, especially since I haven't been able to meet you face to face, and hear anything that I should really know about your child as a student and as a learner that will help me support them even more. And of course, you can always reach me at my school phone number, 404-609-6213. So here's a screenshot of Schoology. I don't know if any of you have heard about it yet, but it's a really great tool. In the past, some teachers have used Moodle, have used wikis. They're all great. They're all pieces of what Schoology has. The nice thing about Schoology, which is a pretty new tool, is that, as you can see, it looks like Facebook. Students have a really easy time interfacing with it. So you'll see on the right-hand side, upcoming assignments will be there. On the left-hand side is a place for all the students who are part of my class. In the middle, the updates. If there's anything new that I need to tell them, I can send a quick note. A lot of the students who have iPhones or Android phones, there's an app, of course. There's an app for everything for Schoology, and they can get that update right away. We've also been using it for online discussions where students post a reading response, kind of work on that public academic voice, and they have a discussion online for homework. So it's not just a one-way student to paper homework piece, and I'm able to look at it and figure out where the students are with any given assignment before I walk into class the next day. It's been a great tool so far this year. So a few pictures of your students in action, because that's really what you want to see. You know, we do a decent amount of collaborative work, really working on that 21st century skill. But collaborative work, not in just some cheesy project that they have to put together. Taking a work, going through it, figuring out what does that mean, having those mini debates before we come back to class together. Kind of working with each other, revising their work especially is key in collaboration. We also have time for independent work, for free writes, for kind of working on paragraphs as we work towards making them better writers. This scene is actually from what we did recently, getting ready for what the AP exam looks like. Online, you can find sample essays, and having the students go through them, look at the rubric, figure out how they grade them, lets them know where they need to be when they get ready for the AP exam. And the more examples they see of actual student writing and what that looks like and what good writing looks like, it's better than anything I can create or these models that they're not quite there yet. So seeing examples that are right on their same level. And again, working on revising, going through them, looking at them together. So I've really enjoyed the time that I've had with your students so far, and I look forward to the rest of the year, and I look forward to getting to meet each one of you. And thank you for taking this time to listen to this podcast, deal with my flubs as I went along, and I'm excited for the rest of the school year. Thank you all.